Hello everyone. Here we'll discuss executive. Executive. So we'll do intro. Legislature, executive, and judiciary are three organs of government. Legislature, executive, and judiciary. Together they perform the functions of the government, maintain law and order, and look after the welfare of the people. The Constitution ensures that they work in coordination with each other and maintain a balance among themselves. In a parliamentary system, executive and the legislature are interdependent. Executive and legislature are independent. The legislature controls the executive and is controlled by the executive. देखें, legislature controls the executive and as well is controlled by the executive. In this chapter, we shall discuss the composition, structure, and functions of the executive organ of the government. This chapter will also tell you about the changes that have occurred in recent times due to political practice. After reading this chapter, you will be able to make a distinction between the parliamentary and the presidential executive. डिस्टिंक्ट करेंगे हम पार्लियामेंट्री एंड प्रेसिडेंशियल एग्जीक्यूटिव्स में. ओके, एग्जीक्यूटिव है वेदर इन पार्लियामेंट है और प्रेसिडेंशियल है. देन अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पोजीशन ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. President. Know the composition and functioning of the Council of Ministers and the importance of the Prime Minister. Ministers. Then understand the importance and functioning of the administrative machinery. Administrative machinery. So first of all, what is an executive? Who is in charge of the administration of your school? Who takes important decisions in a school or a university? In an organization, some office holder has to take decisions and implement those decisions. We call this activity administration or management. But administration requires a body at the top. Okay, requirements क्या है? Top bodies के that will take policy decisions or the big decisions and supervise and coordinate the routine administrative functioning. You may have heard about the executive of big companies, banks, or industrial units. Even every formal group has a body of those who function as chief ministers or the executive of that organization. ओके, फॉर्मल ग्रुप की यहाँ बात की जा रही है, जहाँ पर चीफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स होते हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव्स होते हैं. सम ऑफिस होल्डर्स डिसाइड द पॉलिसीज एंड द रूल्स एंड regulations. Then some office holders implement these decisions in actual day-to-day functioning of the organization. कुछ ऑफिस होल्डर्स होंगे जो पॉलिसी, रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस इम्प्लीमेंट का काम करेंगे, और कुछ ऑफिस होल्डर्स जो होंगे वो डे टू डे जो फंक्शनिंग होगी उसे इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे. And the word executive means a body of persons that looks after the implementation of rules and regulations in actual practice. Listen again. Executive means a body of persons that looks after the implementation of the rules and regulations in actual practice. In the case of government, one body may take policy decisions and decide about rules and regulations, while the other one would be in charge of implementing those rules. Okay, one body decide and other one implement. The organ of government that primarily looks after the function of implementation and administration is called the executive. So, implementation and administration. What are the principal functions of the executive? Executive is the branch of government responsible for the implementation of laws and policies adopted by legislature. Okay, adopted by legislature and responsible for implementation. The executive is often involved in framing of policy. The official designation of the executive vary from country to country. Some countries have presidents, while others have chancellors. The executive branch is not just about presidents, prime ministers, and ministers. It also extends to the administrative machinery. Administrative machinery contains civil servants, while the heads of government and their ministers saddled with the overall responsibility of government policy. Overall responsibility of government policy are together known as the political executive. Those are responsible for day-to-day administration are called the permanent executive. Okay, two types आ गए, political executive, then permanent executive. So what are the different types of executive? Types of executive. Every country may not have the same type of executive. You may have heard about the President of the USA and the Queen of England. ओके, यूएसए में प्रेसिडेंट की बात कर रहे हैं हम, एंड इंग्लैंड में क्वीन की बात कर रहे हैं. बट द पावर्स आर एंड फंक्शंस ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द यूएसए आर वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द पावर्स ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. अब अगर प्रेसिडेंट है यूएसए में और अगर इंडिया के प्रेसिडेंट की बात करें तो दोनों का ही फंक्शनिंग पार्ट्स अलग हैं. Similarly, the powers of the Queen of England are different from the powers of King of Nepal. Both India and France have prime ministers, but their roles are different from each other. Why is this so? Why is this so? Well, take an activity. Procure a photograph of the SAARC summit meeting or the meeting of G8 countries and list those who attended the meeting. Can you imagine why those people and not some others are attending the meeting? Okay, to answer this question, we will briefly outline the nature of executive existing in the some of these countries. The USA has a presidential system. Executive powers are in the hands of president. Canada has a parliamentary democracy with a constitutional monarchy where Queen Elizabeth II is the formal chief of state and the prime minister is head of government. Queen is formal chief of the state and prime minister is the head of government. In France, both the president and the prime minister are a part of semi-presidential system. The president appoints the prime minister as well as ministers, but can't dismiss them. President appoints prime minister, but can't dismiss, as they are responsible to the parliament. Japan has a parliamentary system where the emperor is the head of the state and the prime minister as the head of government. Italy has a parliamentary system where the president as the former head of state and the prime minister as the head of government. Russia has a semi-presidential system where president is the head of state and prime minister who is appointed by president. This is semi-presidential system. Okay, Russia में where president is head of state and prime minister is appointed by the president. So is the head of government. Germany has a parliamentary system in which president is the ceremonial head of the state and the chancellor is the head of government. In a presidential system, a president as the head of state as well as head of government. Presidential system. In this system, the office of president is very powerful both in theory and practice. Countries with such a system include the United States, Brazil, and most nations in Latin America. So, these are the types of executive. Have a look. Types of executive system based on the principles of collective leadership and system based on individual leadership. Collective and individual. पार्लियामेंट्री लीडर अगर कलेक्टिव लीडरशिप की बात करते हैं तो हेयर पार्लियामेंट्री एंड सेमी प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम. Parliamentary. Head of the government is usually known as Prime Minister. He is the leader of the majority part in legislature. He is accountable to the legislature. The head of the state may be monarch, it may be constitutional monarchy, or head may be president. In case of president, here it is parliamentary republic. And constitutional monarchy and parliamentary republic relate with ceremonial executive. Okay, this is about parliamentary. Then semi-presidential system has the president as a head of state. Presidential head is president. Has a prime minister as head of the government. President is head of state and prime minister is head of government. PM and his council are responsible to legislature. Now, system based on individual leadership. President is head of state. He is also the head of government. This is totally presidential. The president is usually directly elected by people. He is not accountable to legislature. So now we talk about semi-presidential executive in Sri Lanka. In 1978, the Constitution of Sri Lanka was amended in 1978 and the system of executive presidency was introduced. Executive presidency. Under the system of executive presidency, people directly elect the president. It may happen that both the president and the prime minister belong to the same political party or to different political parties. ओके, प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड प्रेसिडेंट दोनों ही सेम पार्टी से भी हो सकते हैं और अलग अलग पार्टी से भी हो सकते हैं. The president has vast powers under the constitution. The president chooses the prime minister from the party that has a majority in the parliament. Though ministers must be members of parliament. The president has the power to remove the prime minister or ministers. Apart from being the elected head of state and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the president is also the head of the government. Elected for a term of 6 years, the president can't be removed except by a resolution in the parliament. देखें, by a resolution in the parliament passed by at least 2/3 of the total number of members of parliament. 2/3. if it is passed by not less than one third of the total number of members of parliament and the speaker is satisfied that much allegations merit inquiry, then the speaker can report the matter to the Supreme Court. How is the position of president and prime minister in Sri Lanka different from India? Compare the role of Supreme Court in the impeachment of the president in India and Sri Lanka. In a parliamentary system, the prime minister is the head of government. Most parliamentary systems have a president or a monarch who is the nominal head of the state. Nominal head of state. In such a system, the role of president or monarch is primarily ceremonial, and prime minister, along with the cabinet, wields effective power. Countries with such system include Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, as well as Portugal. A semi-presidential system has both a president and a prime minister, but unlike the parliamentary system, the president may possess significant day-to-day powers. In this system, it is possible that sometimes the president and the prime minister may belong to the same party, and at times they may belong to two different parties, thus would be opposed to each other. Okay, if president and prime minister are from different parties, they can oppose. Countries with such a system include France, Russia, Sri Lanka, etc. So check your progress. It is really very simple. A country having a president, executive, and one with prime minister has parliamentary executive. How would you explain to Neha that this is not always the case? Okay, next part we'll discuss in next video. Thank you.